Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Marvel Plus podcast, the show where we talk the Marvel shows on Disney Plus and how they connect to the MCU. My name is Bret, aka Enigma9011, and you can catch this podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma9011 every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can join the chat if you're a subscriber over there for all the fun theory talk. We'd love to have you on the conversation with us. If you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. Drops over on YouTube. Just search Enigma9011 where it posts at 12 noon Eastern. And give it a watch, give it a listen over there, and let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Today, we are continuing our talk about Netflix's Daredevil Season 1, talking Episode 5, World on Fire. Now, holy shit, we had a lot going on in this episode. Seems like we get more convoluted jumping in between storylines, and it's like, how do I keep everything in track here, and then the things that are going on. So, per usual, at least as usual now, this series has been, I'm going to break this down into a series of storylines so we don't have to do so many jumps from this to this to this to this, and everybody gets confused and hates me for it. I'm going to try and break this down into straight and narrow storylines. So we're going to keep the Daredevil storyline, in one. We're going to keep the Karen and Foggy, in one. And then I guess we'll have Kingpin and his slight detour of a storyline on the story. When they converge, obviously we'll combine them from there. But let's talk about the opening first before we even get into the split of storylines. We left off with a murder. Yippee. We left off with Fisk freaking out, being embarrassed, and killing one of the Russian brothers very violently, decapitating the man. R.I.P. So we left off with that. We're going to open up with Claire kind of recovering from her traumatic attack that she has gone through. We can see that she's obviously beaten up. We see some scars, some damage from her as she's recovering in Matt's apartment. Matt's going to check in on her, see how she's doing. Apparently there's a pretty nasty gash on her back that he'll check for her. Says there's no breaks or anything like that. And she asks, like, how do you know this? And he kind of explains how he's able to sense the things that he's able to sense while being blind, and describes it as a world on fire. Hey, that's the name of the episode. Convenient. So explains all that to her, and how it's more than five senses, how he's able to keep track of things, yada yada yada, whatever. So because of the events that have transpired, he wants Claire to stay with him because obviously her identity is out there. They know her until they figure something out that can keep her safe. And guess what? Oh, we're gonna have a kiss. Okay, they're into each other. I guess I shouldn't be too surprised, but that kind of seemed out of nowhere. So they kiss. Claire's going to ask Matt, why don't you go to the police with this? You know, obviously the Russians are involved and all of their bad doings. Why don't you go to the police with this and kind of have them get involved? And Matt's really opposed to this. And mentions, like, that's not going to stop this. You got to go for the head. So he mentions Fisk. If you cut off the head of the snake, the body just kind of withers away. And Claire understands, still isn't super thrilled about it, but mentions that a name was dropped during her time of capture in this past episode, and the name that she drops is Vladimir. We're going to go over to Vladimir, the other Russian brother, and we're going to see him joined by Wesley, the suited man that works for Fisk. Wesley's going to come in. He's going to play off the whole event, not knowing where the brother is. You know, oh, is he hanging out with a significant other, whatever. Another Russian gentleman is going to walk in, say they found the brother. Unfortunately, it's his body. He was found in a dumpster nearby, decapitated, and seemingly a mask or a piece of cloth has been planted on the body, trying to frame it as Daredevil or the Masked Man that has done this and murdered the brother. So that is our opening, and will lead to opening credits. So now we're going to get into the splitting storylines here. So I'm going to start with Karen and Foggy because that's probably the easiest. to kind of go for, and then I'll follow up with Kingpin, and then we'll go into the long focus or major storyline of the Russians and Daredevil here. So with Karen and Foggy, we're focusing obviously on the law firm here. We're going to see Karen messing around with the copier equipment that she had won in that auction that we had seen in the previous episode through Ben's advice to kind of stay hidden herself while in the auction and not draw too much attention to herself. So she's messing with the copier, having a fun time there. Foggy's going to tease her a little bit about the machines taking over, so treat them nicely. And Matt will arrive, post some stuff he's going to do earlier, and he's going to ask about if they have heard this story about a Russian gentleman losing his head. Both are going to react and say, no, man, that's messed up. Hell's Kitchen's going to shit, whatever. And then we're going to have another woman enter the room. And it is a woman searching for help. She needs the law firm. The woman's going to explain her situation. Essentially, the landlord has a rent-controlled area, but now they have decided they're going to turn the apartments, I believe, into condos or some other type of building, and is essentially forcing everyone out, all the tenants, and like doing work on stuff without getting approval, without going through anything, just kind of starting as is, and is cutting off supplies and resources that they need, obviously, to live. So the guys, with Karen's help, learn about the case and decide to take it on. And they learn that Mr. Tully, the apartment landlord, whatever, is being represented by their old law firm, where they used to intern and then turn down jobs before they created their own firm. So the plan is, Matt is going to go to the police and see if he's heard any, or see if they have heard any complaints or anything Tully related, to try and obviously help with the cause here. While Foggy is going to go to the law firm and try and talk with their representation and their lawyers. Foggy's very nervous about this whole situation, obviously with their history at the law firm prior. Karen has offered to go instead, or not instead, along with him to kind of see the the train wreck that Foggy will be in arguing this case, and will be his backup. So the two of them, Foggy and Karen, are going to go to the law firm, and they're going to meet up with an old friend of Foggy, who is part of the legal team that is representing Tully, Marcy. And Marcy's going to pretty much attempt to kind of talk down Foggy and be like, have your person settle, take the money, you know, this is the best deal they're going to get. It's pretty much word versus word. They're not going to get anywhere. And Foggy is able to kind of refocus his attention. Yes, Foggy Bear. Refocus his attention and pretty much lays it into Marcy of like, you're wrong. You know, we have a strong case. We have a strong argument. Like, pretty much like laying down, boom, 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 all the points that are in their favor. And now they have a pretty good shot at winning this whole case. And Karen's very impressed. Yeah, cut her down, exactly. And they will leave. And Foggy will then tell Karen that they were in a former relationship that did not end super well. So now we got one more point before we're going to kind of leave off on Foggy and Karen. And they're going to arrive at, I think it was Cardenas. I'm sorry, I'm saying that way wrong. We're going to follow up on the woman's apartment. And essentially these two are going to offer their assistance to try and help her get things kind of in a better shape than it is. I'm not sure if this apartment complex was the exact location, but it looks very dingy and looks very similar to the apartments in episode 2 when we had the hallway scene fight. Don't know if it's the same place, but looked very familiar. So the two are going to offer their services to help repair some stuff and help this woman out. They're able to get her sink running, and as a thanks, the woman is going to make them dinner and kind of essentially set up a little date for them in the apartment. And that is where we're going to leave Foggy and Karen for now. Over to Kingpin. Not a whole lot. Well, I guess there is a little bit to talk with Kingpin. So, after our opening credits, we are going to see Fisk, finally, meeting up with the rest of the group, the Union Allied group as we know it. We have Leland, the older gentleman, Madame Gao, and then I'm blanking on the other gentleman's name, but they're all meeting up in this garage. It's not the taxi garage for the Russians, but some other garage, and meeting up and talking about how the Russians are now being cut out and removed from this group. The rest of the group, at first, very apprehensive against this. You should have talked about it, what happened, like how's anything going to run because they're part of the operation. And Fisk pretty much mentions, like, he apologizes for being absent originally. And he mentions that the Russians are too unpredictable. We knew we were going to cut them out at some point. It's just happening now. Tells Madame Gao to still send her deliveries to the Russians. It's still their responsibility. Nothing has changed at that front. But afterwards, he'll take over that, and that will be part of his job, and they will split the shares evenly amongst the four parties. Everybody says okay, they agree to it, and they'll go from there. He's also going to mention how the Russians are at the moment believing that the Masked Man did this situation with his brother. So there's no kind of trail leading to them that they had did it. And yes, he essentially intimidated them to kind of be on his side after mentioning he did decapitate a man. Yeah, that kind of helps. So the group is now refocused. Now, we are going to get some small, quick interactions between the group as they leave. And Mrs. G is going to bring it up in the chat right now. The Asian gentleman is going to bring up a promise that Fisk had made him and who he speaks for prior. This is just a little tease as far as I know. We know barely anything about these two and their relationship. We only know that the Asian gentleman has some kind of workings with buildings. We saw him, I believe, at the end of the first episode showing some blueprints and like he's part of construction or something. So that's going to maybe be something that we follow up later on in the season, is who is this gentleman and then who does he speak for? Who is he representing in this bigger deal? Whether that will be this season or maybe season 2 or 3 down the road. And then we are going to get one more short interaction with Madame Gao where he's going to offer to walk her to her car, which she takes, but then she's kind of like reading into him like, you want something from me, like what's going on here. The scene will end there and we'll kind of cut away from that. So the only other thing, let me scan through these really quick, that I think our boy Fisk is going to get into is Fisk is going to essentially get a second date. Somehow he manages to get a second date with Vanessa. I don't know. But essentially he's going to talk with her about, I'm not a big fan of being in public. I'm not a big fan of being questioned. But anything you want to know, I will be open and honest with you. So they have a very forward-facing, I don't know if that's the right term, forward-facing conversation, open and honest conversation about him, what he's doing, what is going on. So we'll leave Fisk at that for now. That's what he's been doing. So now let's get on to the main storyline with our friend Daredevil. So post the group meeting up and talking about the Russians being cut out of the group, we're going to follow up with some Russians and one of the delivery men for Madame Gao. They're trying to figure out if he knows anything about the Masked Man, but this delivery guy is totally spacing out, just singing songs, and just ignores them essentially. We're going to see Daredevil get involved. with these Russians, jumping them as they're going to leave from this building, seemingly getting something from there. And he's going to beat them up. He's going to beat up the backup that attempts to come out and help him. And unfortunately, or help them. Unfortunately, when the backup comes, they're going to trying to shoot Daredevil. They shoot the delivery guy in the head, so he's eliminated. And Daredevil will finish them off and is trying to get some information from them, obviously. Who's Vlad? What's the deal with Vlad? Blah, blah, blah. Interrogates for Vlad. The man says, is very frightened. Says, don't cut off my head like you did the other guy. The cops are going to arrive. Daredevil's very confused at obviously the statement that this man has made, and whoosh, he'll make a run for it. So, we're going to get that quick altercation. Now, before this, we're going to get the Mrs. Cardenas showing up, pleading her case. So now we're going to follow up with Matt at the police station. Matt's going to follow up with the officer we met in episode 1. Good friend of Foggy and his. His mother actually tipped off the woman to go to the law firm. So we're going to kind of get a little bit more of this relationship built, but only briefly. Matt's going to ask for information about Tully, if there's been any complaints and, noise about it, whatever it is. The officer agrees to help him out and is going to try and find that information for him. Matt's going to sit down and wait, and he's going to do his thing, and he's going to listen in on the conversations that are going on in the precinct. Conveniently, the Russians that he had taken out that night, presumably, one of them is being interrogated by the cops, trying to find out, obviously, information, stuff like that, and what the whole deal was. The Russian gentleman, trying to get a deal for himself, is going to reveal some information to the officers. And he names drops Fisk. Names drops Fisk, which obviously we know, but at this point, big no-no. Don't do that. So he does this. The cops are all interested. They're going to unhandcuff the Russian gentleman, and then they're going to have a quick conversation between the two of them. Is it your turn or is it my turn? One cop is going to punch the other cop. They're all going to start yelling. The cop is going to pull his gun on the Russian guy and shoot him. Matt's going to hear all this, get scared, or, not scared, but alert. But unfortunately can't do anything before the bullet is shot and we hear the gunshot go off. So we have now learned that the cops, at least these two cops, are working for Kingpin as well, trying to keep his cover. Great. Love it. Awesome. So we're going to follow up with one of these cops a little bit later on during the evening. And he's leaving the precinct. He's gotten a call on his cell phone or some kind of message. Daredevil's going to arrive, beat the shit out of him, and then interrogate him. He's going to try and, figure out any information he can about Fisk, about this whole situation. Once again, the cop is going to mention decapitating the Russian brother. Seemingly, obviously, Daredevil's the one to blame for this. Daredevil's going to ask how Fisk is connected. The officer is going to attempt to grab a weapon of some kind. I believe it was a knife, but I could be wrong. From his shoe. And Daredevil will knock him out and then take his phone, which has gotten the message from the phone call or whatever it was. Matt is going to go back to his apartment. Obviously, he can't read the phone himself to see who called, what happened, connection there. So he's going to ask for Claire's help. Prior to this scene where he's going to follow up with Claire, we're going to follow up actually with Vladimir. We're going to follow up with the brother. He's cleaning his brother's body, and the man from the docks that we had met earlier in the episodes arrives, apologizes for what has happened to his brother, and mentions that there was a car that had arrived wherever he was, I assume, working or whatever set up. And it was bloodied, and it was covered in brains. Ew. Doesn't have a name, but gives a very good description of the man who is the owner of this car. Big, tall, white guy, bald. Hey, it's Fisk. So Vladimir now knows Fisk was the one who did this, not Daredevil. So he's pissed. So he's going to tell his henchmen, prep everybody. Prep all the guys we have, weaponry, armor, etc. Prep them all. We're going to war to honor his brother. He's then going to tell the dock man 1 million for somebody who can tell him where Fisk is located. This man says, sweet, 1 million, that's a lot of money. Goes out and is going to tell people. So now we're going to follow up with Claire. Claire's checking the phone out. Mentions there's no message, anything like that, but there's a text. And this text has a list of locations that she's going to kind of rattle through. One catches Matt's ears, and I guess it's some kind of restaurant that maybe he has been at before or knows where the Russians are at. So he's like, okay, maybe Vlad will be there. Unfortunately, these two are going to have a little bit of a falling out. Claire's trying to stop Matt from turning into something he hates. She knows he was lying about, enjoying beating these people up, and tries to stop him from going, but Matt is, determined to do what he needs to do. What was the actual thing? What are you going to do? Whatever it takes. Claire's going to mention her feelings. Matt kind of shoots her down and then leaves. So, yikes, this relationship didn't last very long, as Foggy will mention in a different conversation. Apparently Matt gets around, hasn't really been in a relationship longer than 2 months, so hopefully that's not all bad, but that's not a good place to leave it. So we're going to go back quickly to the date with Fisk and Vanessa. Once again, they're talking about all this stuff, open and honest communication, blah, blah, blah. It turns out Vanessa had brought a gun to the date. Somehow Fisk is able to pick up on that. Asks her about the gun in her purse. She reveals, obviously, she was kind of threatened by Fisk and his, secrecy, and knows he's a big deal. He's got a lot of power, so she brought the gun for that. But the trust has been built between the two, so she will give the gun to Fisk, who is then going to pocket it in his own suit jacket. After we see this scene, we're going to cut over to the concierge or the waiter. I don't know his official status. And he is on the phone. Okay. We're going to cut over to Vlad. Vlad, the brother, has now been notified that a tip has been given on Fisk's whereabouts. Matt's listening in on this, that they know where Fisk is, and now we know that he's been tipped. Alright, so the Russians are full mobility mode here. Now, we're going to cut over. This is after Foggy and Karen's date. They're having dinner. They talk about blind Matt and how he's able to sense people's faces or know what they look like. They're getting connected here. It's a little awkward, but I get it. Whatever. Awkward, the conversation of like, oh, touch my face. I want to know what it's like. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever. We're going to go from that date over to an alleyway. We're going to see one of Madame Gao's delivery men, blind, which I just picked up on. We saw at the first episode, too, that these people must all be, unfortunately, blind through whether the work they're doing or whatever it is. Maybe it's to keep things secret. It's a delivery for the Russians. Okay, guys let them in. They're going to escort them in. You see all the Russians mobilizing. They're getting things ready. They're prepping themselves, obviously, to go and attack Fisk for the former brother. And Vlad and the one henchman next to him are like, are we expecting a delivery? Madame Gao's gentleman is going to raise his hand, seemingly with a detonation device, and blows himself up. Suicide. Yippee. Big explosion in this warehouse. Matt is outside taking care of some guards in the front. The blast is going to reverberate, obviously, out of the building and knock Matt over, and as well as those Russians, seemingly knocking him out for the time being. However, another explosion is also going to happen at the same time near Karen and Foggy. They are going to get knocked out, and the explosion will break the windows from Mrs. Cardenas' apartment, knocking them down, hurting Karen, hurting the missus, wrecking things there. So, things going down. We're going to cut back over to Fisk and Vanessa. Vanessa's looking out this big window and view that they have at this private restaurant, and we see a series of maybe 4 or 5 explosions going off. So now we know that list was a hit list where the Russians were at, their bases, their hideouts, etc. All those places have gotten bombed to essentially eliminate the Russians. Vanessa's like, okay, what's going on? Fisk is going to explain, have you heard that story about the boy who was taken away from his father after his father was beaten? Yes, these are the men who did it. Whoosh, they're taken care of. She simply replies, good. So, we have all these. Karen and Foggy. Karen's going to take care of Mrs. Cardenas, and Foggy is going to seemingly try and go help and see if anybody else in the apartment complex, or at least the building, needs any assistance. That's where we're going to leave those two off. Matt is going to wake up from being unconscious, at least for a few seconds or whatever it is, and he is going to tail Vlad and the main henchman. Somehow they survive this. He's going to tail them and find them, beat them up. Bah, 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 bah. We're going to cut back to that scene in a minute. I may be going a little out of order here, but we're going to cut over to Wesley in a car with the Doc Man. Great. Doc Man's going through some money. He obviously got paid. So the whole scheme was Kingpin is managing his little puppets here and essentially tipped off the Russians himself for what he was doing. He told the Doc Man to go and share the information about the vehicle and how Fisk had done it himself, had did the murder. He has also tipped the waiter and told the waiter to call the Russians to tip where Fisk was, to get them in their hideouts, to get them mobilized there, to then eliminate them. So it's this whole elaborate plan that he's put together. The Doc Man says, hey, pleasure doing business with you. If you need anything else, let me know. Pieces out. We're going to cut back over to Daredevil. He's beating up Vlad. He's beating up the other henchmen. And he is just laying in shots to Vlad. Says this is for Claire, all that stuff. The cops are going to arrive. Uh-oh. Daredevil has not run away, and he is seemingly caught at this point. And that's where we're going to end episode 5. Oh boy, a lot of things going on. So, Russians are seemingly eliminated now, minus Vlad and his top henchmen. I assume they're going to be in jail or eliminated maybe a little bit later at some point. So seemingly that group has been removed from the situation. Now Matt is going to jail. Once again, we can assume. So what's his deal going to be now leading into episode 6? Is he fully going to get caught? Are we going to cut back to the episode where he's going to make a run for it? Like, yeah, there's a lot of questions in play now of like, okay, what is your status here? So we'll have to see where he goes. Foggy and Karen, obviously seeming to kind of building their own relationship there. Is that true? Mrs. G in chat mentions it seems that she's interested in Matt. I was thinking that too, at least early on, that she kind of had this, interest in him. I don't know, because it seemed pretty genuine, the connection. Obviously, Karen and Foggy have kind of built over these past couple episodes, whether it's going out on the town, to kind of get her mind clear from the incident, or obviously they've been hanging out more often. Like, it seems like they're building their own rapport with each other. So I don't know. I hope it's like, I hope it's Karen and Foggy getting together, or just like, this is their friendship. Like, just them buddy copping it. That sounds weird. I hope it doesn't turn into this weird love triangle thing where Foggy and Matt kind of, butt heads with each other. But I guess time will tell with where this is going to go. I just don't want those two distrusting each other or whatever, because it seems like, they got a good thing going. And I think they have enough respect for each other that wouldn't happen, but I don't know. So we'll have to see. What's the situation with Claire? What's going on with her? Yeah, this is a rough spot, because obviously Claire was a pretty big ally, being, helping out Matt with his injuries. But obviously, hey, we like each other, and now, hey, I'm pushing you away. Okay, so where do things go from here? Like, is she safe now because the Russians are eliminated, so she can go off and peace out? Or that's a whole can of worms there. I don't know. And yeah, I guess Vanessa's just cool with all this, like Kingpin cleansing the city. And, he did mention earlier in their date that, like, he wants to rebuild it, but sometimes you need to destroy things before you can rebuild them fully. So she doesn't seem too bothered by his methods, especially if it's for the right reasons of, they were harming, the kid and his dad. Obviously, yes, that was not a good situation, but obviously she doesn't know his full involvement with everything, so I guess I could see how this seems pure, but obviously it's very extreme what he is doing. So we'll have to see where this goes in the next episode from here. But I hope you guys are enjoying the series as we're going along through it. I'm definitely enjoying it more and more as we continue on through the series. But yeah, this has been another episode of the Marvel Plus podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you guys want to catch this podcast live, you can go over to twitch.tv/Enigma9011 every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, where it's live over there. You can join in on the chat and the theory talks like Mrs. G did today, if you're a subscriber over there. But if you can't catch live, that's A-OK. Just search Enigma9011 over on YouTube. Or you can catch the video drop on Mondays at 12 noon Eastern, and you can let me know in the comment section down below what your thoughts, what your theories are about the show. I'd be happy to read through them. But thank you guys so much for watching this series along with me. Hope you guys are enjoying it. We're going to have to figure out, I think I got my hooks fully into this. We're going to have to figure out what we're doing past season 1. Maybe do 2 series of Marvel Plus at the same time, obviously with Moon Knight coming out. I'd like to follow up with, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and the following seasons of Daredevil. Just keep going through that. So maybe we'll do a little bit of double videos as we go through that. But we'll take it by year, whatever the thing is. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Appreciate you guys giving this a watch, giving it a listen, and I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.